In 1988, Olympic history was made in Calgary in Canada. The Winter Games came to the Canada Olympic Park, and today history is made again for the first time in World Cup four-man bobsled racing. Women compete head-to-head against the men. Hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me, bobsled analyst John Morgan, as we get ready for the second of our heats here in Calgary, Canada. John, this Olympic track seeing history made again, but what are the keys that we need to look at in Heat 2?
Well, Team Alana Myers, 16th place and 17th sled. The other sled crashed, but you know, first time they've done this. And again, historic moment in the sport. You have two of the best, most dominant female athletes in the sport driving men down the track, something everybody thought would never happen. We saw it in the first run, but down to the leaders team, Max Arndt. What speed he had with a deficient start time. Drive down the track wasn't that good, but he came late in the heat after the crash of the Latvian sled that really doctored the track up. Now, Zakharov, this is a big surprise. Zakharov being in second place like this. He's a great four-man pilot, but he went early. He's one of the first guys down before the crash. That was a big advantage. And here is the guy who was really not only lucky to go early, but he had the best start and he had the best finish at the bottom. He won the two-man event yesterday. He's the Olympic silver medalist from 2014 in Sochi, and he's got the same team with him intact. Nobody else can say that in the competition.
Yes, with the Olympic champion Alexander Zubkov absent, he is the de facto best four-man driver on the planet, and he leads the race by a quarter second. He could be going double gold here today. So the Canada Olympic Park, lots of fans around. It's been a great weekend for Latvia already. Gold and silver in the men's skeleton yesterday. Gold in the two-man race, and they're looking hopeful of another gold here. Minus 4.8 degrees, the ice is getting colder, as is the air around Canada Olympic Park. It should be quicker, but the gouges in the track after the second Latvian sled crashed have definitely helped slow it down. Mel Bardis may be uncatchable in the lead. Kaylee Humphries, the Olympic champion, Olympic silver medalist in women's bobsledder, Alana Myers-Taylor, both going off early in the heat. And that man, our race leader, Oscar's Mel Bardis, will be last to go. There is Alana Myers' classroom champion sled. And the Russians, well, Nikita Zakharov in silver medal position. He has a tough battle, though, against Max Arndt. 16 sleds will go in the second heat. The Latvians that crashed in Heat 1 will not take a second trip. They'll take a couple of weeks off to recuperate before we reconvene at Rough Tough Altenburg in Germany after Christmas. So Oscar's Mel Bardis will be the last sled on this pre-season trail around North America. Last weekend, Lake Placid. This weekend here in Calgary, Alberta. But the eyes of the world will certainly be focused on our first two sleds as the women race for the first time in World Cup. Alana Myers-Taylor, the first woman on the ice, as she gets ready for heat number 2. History being made in Calgary. Women racing men in the four-man competition. Olympic silver medalist Alana Myers-Taylor with the US crew. First to go in the second heat in the classroom champ sled.
Well, the start time is everything in the sport of bobsledding, and Myers gives up a lot of weight. Now, it's a maximum weight sport, so she's got to have a lot more weight in this sled. Speed 59.4, very similar to her first heat. Everything about this track is about the start, the first 5 seconds, and then the speed after the first corner, which is relevant to how the athletes got in the sled. This looks a little smoother than the first one. History being made here, though. There was a female athlete named Catherine Dewey that won the U.S. National Championships with the men in 1940. The next summer, then head of the AAU in the United States, banned women's bobsledding, a guy named Avery Brundage. ironically, Catherine Dewey, very appropriately, was inducted to the U.S. Olympic Bobsled Hall of Fame last weekend in Lake Placid.
82 miles an hour in the finish corner, and a good tidy second run, 54.68, 0.2 of a second quicker than her first heat, and looking a lot tidier. Actually, the track surface in the 45 minutes since Heat 1 has been worked on, so she's getting slightly better ice than she did in Heat 1, but feeling a lot more relaxed.
Probably only has 20 trips in a four-man bobsled. 20. Start. This is everything. Now it's a maximum weight, so the bigger you are, the lighter the sled. There's a minimum weight in the sled, so she's given up 60 pounds that they got to put in the sled.
She's never raced with these three guys before either, and they're not as fast as the top guys in the field, so she's losing out in acceleration.
History, Alana Myers.
Look at the smile on her face. She's loving that trip. And next up, the Winter Olympic champion in the last two games in Vancouver and in Sochi, Kaylee Humphries. And again, it's a pickup crew. Dan Dale, Joey Nemeth, and DJ McClelland have never raced in a World Cup outing before, but they are there with Kaylee in front of a home audience.
Alana Myers just came down the track. She won the gold medal in the tour and the women's bob event this morning. Kaylee Humphries, bronze medal. And Myers and Humphries are awesome female athletes. And they're pretty headstrong too, which is why they're in the position they're in right now.
You've got to be a world champion and an Olympic champion. You've got to be determined, and that's how they've got these four-man sleds into the men's race.
Kaylee probably only has 25 or 30 trips in a four-man, but she's had them mostly on this track. So she's more familiar with this track than Alana Myers.
She was shaking her head after the first run, but she's had a worse trip in the last 5 years down this track. I'm not sure when, but she's tidying it up here. Speed is good too.
Track's faster, definitely in the second run. It's cooler temperatures, harder ice.
Drive is much smoother, 54.5. That's a good run from Kaylee Humphries. Looked a lot tidier, more comfortable ride in the back as well. Busy track here in Calgary. This has been getting a lot of media attention, and rightly so.
Yep.
A bit more of a smile on her face.
Second race today. Well, she knows how to drive the track, but the two-man's a sports car, the four-man's a big truck. But look at the lines here, the rudder tips. Perfect. She's been down the track a lot, but she's been down in those sports cars, not these big boxes.
Got to have such quiet hands here.
Yeah, it's not the person who drives the most that wins. It's the person or lady who drives the least.
Oh, she's still a person. That works well.
That works.
That works well. Four-seater sleds it is there now in the World Cup.
They're the leaders, though. They get to go to the box.
Yes, they do. Next up is Alexei Stulnev of Russia. And he was in 14th place after the first heat. Kaylee Humphries just 400 slower. Stulnev is going to have to up his second heat game to stay in the lead.
Didn't have very good drive in the first run. Decent start, 10th best start. 10th best start, you should be in 7th or 8th. Push bar out, it's in. Speed, 60.3. We're going to see some teams, somebody got in 61.1.
Yep.
That's, speed is everything. Where the crash was in the first run, Keeper Mattis from Latvia. No problem for this Russian sled. Take a look at the rudder tips here. Maybe you should look at that. That's not how to do it.
Kilometre an hour down on the Canadian sled. Kaylee Humphries is in the green, but will he stay in the green?
Well, it's going to get close.
1400s.
I don't think he really wants to get beaten by Kaylee Humphries.
He doesn't want to get beaten by anyone. That's the competitor.
Oh.
700s of a second. He holds the lead, with 13 sleds still to come down the ice here in Calgary.
148.80 is the
Alexei Stulnev of Russia leading the field here, and that means he will finish no lower than 14th place. Got a little rocky at the bottom of the trip, though. Look at this big skid.
Yeah, this is worth 3/10. You know, again, the 10th best start in the first run to be back in 14th, 15th place. Deficient driving for sure. And he did it again on that run.
A little bit of a rocky trip for the crew. They move into the lead ahead of Kaylee Humphries of Canada. Lots of Korean jackets up there at the top. Red and blue of Korea, blue and red of Russia. Alexei Stulnev leads, Katie Humphries second, Alana Myers in third place. Oskars Kiebermanis crashed in heat one, does not start. Yoon Jong-won of Korea, after a 13th place finish in the first heat, getting ready to attack and try and move up towards the top 10. First four-man World Cup start of the season. Teammate Kim drove in the first race in Lake Placid, doesn't get in, got to get his hands on the ropes.
Push bar hit the wall. Speed's going to be real deficient, 59.8, better than Kelly Humphrey's speed, but that's not the speed they need with that type of start.
Problem is, it was at 50 meters. It'll be slower further down the track as well.
If he keeps up at this pace, Kelly Humphrey's going to beat him at the bottom. 16 to 18. Stop the bleeding is the expression in bobsledding. Needs good exits here. That's not bad. Speed. Good. He's coming back.
Humphries.
But he's coming back. 1500s. Speed there. Good exit. This is good line. Crashed twice this week in practice. Barely qualified for the race. Down to 3. Flying on the bottom part of this track. He's going to be the leader. Wow.
600's in it, but it's a narrow margin. He takes the lead away from the Russians by a breath. There was only 200s between Korea and Russia in the first heat. Only 600s in total after 2 miles of ice. That's a close race.
That's Calgary. Well, it's all about getting in, get down quickly, teamwork, choreography on ice, but sometimes things go wrong, and there it is. That push bar dragging on the wall, left side of the wall, not how to do it, but give him a lot of credit. Bottom part of the track, he recovered, put everything behind him. Look at the speed on the bottom. That's why he's the leader. What a comeback. I thought he was doomed to be in third or fourth place.
Fourth after first heat in two-man yesterday. Had a shot at the medals. Next up is Switzerland's only sled in the four-man competition, Beat Hefty. The two-man medalist yesterday will not drive four-man this season. Rico Peter then with Dutchman Bror van der Zijde behind, Thomas Amrine and Simon Friedli, the more experienced brakemen in the Swiss setup. They had the fourth fastest start, but a sloppy drive from Rico needs tidying up.
Yeah, the start time like he had in the first run should have been way better than this. When you have a start time third or fourth, you should be in the top 4 or 5. He's down here in double digits. 59.8, not very good velocity after curve 1. That's relevant again to how you get in the sled and sit down. It's been coming on, Mark. Last year, he was impressive a couple places with his speed, which means he's got that natural Swiss ability of being able to drive a bobsled. A much better trip. Until I jinxed him.
First, the commentator follows the Swiss down. 130.9, not good speed at the bottom, but he hangs on, leads the race. We've still got 11 sleds to come, but the Swiss are on top at the moment.
Swiss sled 148.42.
Swiss running a long way past the station. Very short braking straight. They come out the final corner over 82 miles an hour.
Right down the middle of the Kreisel, above Kreisel. But here he's a little late. This is where I jinxed him, said he was doing good, then bang into the wall. And that costs you probably half a mile an hour and 10 hundredths. But 10 hundredths on this track, Martin, could be 3 or 4 places.
Yeah, some close battles in the field. 11th place, Nico Walter, was only in front by 300ths of a second after the first heat. Germany's Nico Walter on the starting blocks. One of the drivers that likes to start on the front handle of the sled rather than from behind in the four-man.
5:09 in the first run, 5:11 here. Should be up 60.4, 60.8. Great speed. He had that in the first heat. The Germans have excellent start techniques. They have not the best starts, but they have the best start speeds, which means well-coached, well-trained to get into these sleds. World Cup loser.
And here they are in the straightaway.
Problems there. Crashed in Lake Placid last week in the first run. Out of 4. This is going to be right to the 100th of a second.
Only 300s in front of Rico Pater in heat 1. He's 400s up at the line, 1500s. Good final corner from the German. 54.17 slide. And the sleds in front of him, again, are only a few hundreds away. If he picks up a 10th, he'll be in the top 6.
Yeah, he went disadvantaged in the first heat. He went last. And I predict he's going to move up 4 or 5 sleds. This was his only nemesis in that run. And coming out of 8, of course, it's easy to say sitting here, but bottom part of the track, look how good those lines are. You saw him checking the runners, and he gained a lot of time on the bottom. He's probably the smoothest sled we've seen on the bottom part of the track in this run. Sven Ruhr on the right, Leo, the longtime coach from Altenburg, on the left.
So Nico Walter, the former junior world champion, is our race leader. 10 sleds still to come here in Calgary in Canada in the second race of the four-man season. There's Coach René Spies on the right-hand side. Nico Walter, good trip down for his boys. Final corner is always rocky. It shakes the crew up nicely just as they're getting ready to get out of the sled. Little sting in the tail. He got great speed down at the bottom, take the lead. 0.47 off in the first heat. 0.36 off the lead is 6th position, so there is a chance for Walter to move up the order. Well, lots of fans trackside, John Morgan. You get so close to the action, you can lean on the wall as the sleds come by at 80 miles an hour. You really feel the speed.
TV does not do the sport justice when you see these big 4-man sleds rocketing down a track at 80 miles an hour. The thunderous roar, you just really are beside yourself, and then you try and take a picture. That's hard.
Yeah, we need to fix the cameras not quite so rigidly on the wall, because these things blow by you and shake your ground. See the same, the weight there for the men, 630 kilos. That's the same for the women's sled as well. So you've got to pack it with as much muscle as you can. There's a minimum weight limit for safety, and then the rest of it is just beef. The more beef, the less ballast you have to add to get it up to that maximum weight.
That's what Kaylee Humphries is going to struggle with. The average size of and Alana Myers, but the average size of the 4 men who won Olympic medals last year was about 235 pounds.
Talking to Lyndon Rush, he reckons that a 4-man driver puts in about maybe 15% of the effort in the all-up push. And he said if the girls are 5 or 10% off, it's not as big a factor as you might imagine.
1 minute to the continuation of heat number 2.
Busy Canada Olympic Park, lots of crowd down here watching history being made in the four-man race in Calgary. There is your race leader. Well, there's three of the crew. Nico Walter has the lead with 10 sleds to go here. And there's Rico Peder's crew going off to offer congratulations. Nico Walter leading. And he could pick up a couple of spots here. He was the very last man on gouged up ice in Heat 1. He's got better track conditions in Heat 2. Kaylee Humphries and Alana Myers-Taylor have already had their race. See the German skeleton crew there on the right-hand side watching the action. Next up, for Canada, Chris Spring. A little bit at 6s and 7s with this Calgary track. It's his home ice, but after training yesterday, he was saying, I'm still not sure I'm getting anything right here. Nearly parks the two-man on its head in training.
Adidas spikes, that's what gives him the grip to sprint across the ice. 375 16th of an inch spike on the bottom of them shoes. Oh, big turn there. 60.0, that not very good speed. Boy, for a guy who's been down the track as much as anybody, or more, that was a big mistake in curve one. He turned right on that first curve, which you don't want to get that friction up there.
1800s behind Nico Walter. Spring has not found his mojo this season. Gap is growing. The speed is not as good as the German sled either.
Now, we said, well, Nico Walter was going to move on. This is the first victim, Chris Spring.
Spring drops over a quarter second. Nico Walter moves up the order. Spring down to third with 9 to come.
Canadian and Americans both seem to be in a slump in four-man bobsled, the rebuilding after the Olympic year. Well, we talk about getting around curve one. They get in, get down, speed's not bad. You know, the start time's not bad. Look at the way he turns around here. Look at those runners. That's like putting the brakes on. That friction there, look at the speed difference. Almost a full kilometer a mile. That's unbelievable.
Especially at that low speed.
This is his home track, so a big deficiency in curve one. Cost him all the way down here in the labyrinths.
There's Derek Plug, one of the guys that crashed in the wreck in Altenburg a couple years ago. Nico Walter and his crew leading the race here.
Two big bodyguards he's got on either side of him, both 6'5", 6'6".
Justin Cripps of Canada, 9th after Heat 1, 100th in front of teammate Chris Spring. With Lascelles Brown, Ben Coakwell, Brian Barnett on the crew. Now can they keep their noses in front of Germany's young Nico Walter?
Well, let's see them get in, get down, try and attain 60.3 or 60.4 speed around this curve. A lot smoother, 60.3. Not great, still a half a kilometer down to the Germans.
Better starts time than their first heat though.
What a diversity in this sled. You've got Cripps, born in Hawaii, lives in Calgary. Brown is a Jamaican, now lives in Calgary, Canadian citizen. Coakwell's from Regina, Saskatchewan. And Barnett's from Edmonton.
Here in Heat 2 and into the field.
The rub on the wall, wrong side going into the big Kreisel turn. This 270-degree corkscrew.
He's going to need to be perfect. That's not the speed. If he doesn't tack down here, no. Done.
Hasn't had the speed of the Germans anywhere on the track.
Nico Walter put on the heat. He went at disadvantage in the first run, going last, and he picks off another.
54.53, half a second slower than his first heat. Usually in a four-man race, you are slower because the ice isn't as good, and maybe not that much slower. King grabs the handle to stop the sled rolling backwards while they all bail out.
Brakeman's got the brakes on so it doesn't go backwards. Look at the crossover. Looked like he got in a little too early there. Look at it come down. See, early up and down, a little wavering in there. You see the way the heads are slapping a little bit? Pressure point. Now the crossover. Looked like he was late there. Looked like a little airborne. Now down below in the fast part of the track, there's another where the runner was airborne on the entrance to the curve. Boy, the Canadians aren't really taking advantage of the home track here.
Just missing the timing by a fraction. So Nico Walter and his crew still in the lead. How much further up the order? They might climb from 11th, maybe into the top 6. Next up is the 2010 four-man Olympic champion, the night train crew. Steve Olsen, the only man carried over from last year, but Stephen Langton's cousin, David Kremin, is on the back of the sled with Adam Clark at 3.
Start time, Holcomb at 59.9 in the first run around the first curve. Let's watch it on the left. 59.8. There it is. You wonder what's happened to Steve Holcomb? Best start time at the Olympic Games in 2 of the 4 runs last year, tied one of the runs, and now he's reduced to double-digit start times. If you start the sled, you got a good piece of equipment, you can drive, you can finish. If you can't start, tough to compete, especially on this track.
It is the equivalent of horsepower in a race car motor. If you don't have enough, it's always going to be tough to come back from behind.
Needs to be perfect. Needs to hit a grand slam home run down here in the bottom part of the track. Down to 7. He's going to run out of track. He's flying.
It's getting very close to hanging on. 1:33.8 is quicker than the Germans. Is he in front?
Ran out of track.
Yeah, by a couple of meters. 54.25 slide for Holcomb.
And Nico Walter picks off another victim here.
And a big scalp, the night train. Holcomb with blisters on the steering hands.
Well, 2010-11, he didn't have a very good season after the Olympics. Look at the runner tips. Look at the people behind him. You can see the number 2 guy's helmet. That's aerodynamic negative right there. But on bottom part of the track, Holcomb had his night train sled rolling because he had some great speed down here, but he needed another 20 yards of track to overtake the German for the lead.
Holcomb's target in the next 4 years is Olympic gold in the 2-man, the one that is missing. Lamondin's target in the next 4 years is to try and get to the games in 2- and 4-man. Bruce Tasker, Ben Simons and Andy Matthews on the Team GB sled. They are the number 1 crew from Great Britain at the moment. Tasker and Simons have been driving in Europa Cup. It's the first 4-man World Cup start for them this year.
Decent start in the first run. 5:07, 5:08. Speed should be 59 or 60.6, 60.8. Great speed. This is a well-coached and disciplined team, but Lamondin crashed twice in practice.
1100's the lead over Nico Walter. A 1/10 of a second after heat 1, and the gap is squeezing down.
Not bad.
Right down the chute. 1:27.4. The Germans 1:27.6. Going to be very close. 600's the lead.
Pulling away. Boy, that was rough there, though.
One corner at the bottom could decide it. 1:30.9.
Not very good speed.
And he is tied. Wow. The Germans are loving this. And Pete Gunn breathes a sigh of relief. No crash. The Brits make it down with a tie for the lead.
Exit of Kreisel, wrong side. Now he's got to drift over into the curve a little late here. And then watch the next curve. He's late into this curve. Look at the climb. Look at the head slapping around. So he didn't make the mistake there. He made the mistake up at Exeter Kreisel. And it just compounds, and you finally catch up when you put the brakes on down at the bottom. But he likes it.
Yeah, they're happy with that run. Big smiles and celebratory pats from the guys. They have a joint lead. 6 sleds still to come here to decide our medals. Alexander Kazyanov of Russia. He's coming under pressure as well from Nico Walter and Lamin Dean. Just a whisker in front, only 100th in front of the British sled in the first heat. Sixth after heat 1 in Calgary, Alexander Kazyanov chasing to try and get into the lead ahead of joint front runners Nico Walter of Germany and Lamin Dean of Great Britain. Martin Haver and John Morgan watching the action trackside.
Not very good exit speed, but this is one of the best eyes and hands. 4-man circuit, lost by 1/100th of a second last week. This week, the reason he's in this deficit, I think, is because he went after the crash. The track conditions weren't that good, but he's losing time back. Nico Walter and Lamont Dean on the bottom are loving this.
Not as quick as the British sled, still slower. He's losing more time. He'll be in the red next clock. Running out of track.
Nico Walter's going to knock off his 6th sled.
Better speed than the Brits at the bottom, but not enough. Too little, too late. 8 men celebrate in the leaders' box. They are in the top 6. And that checks all sorts of qualification criterion, I'm sure, for both the Germany and Great Britain teams.
Very surprised on this ride. And I think the start, 60.4 exit speed, that's kilometers, I think had a lot to do with it. That's 37.5 miles an hour. But here, this is a good driver. 8th best speed on the Exeter Kreisel. Holcomb with the best.
Not a great run.
No.
Nico Walter, 54.17. He came down 54.33.
Well, he had a disadvantaged track in the first heat when he went last.
Yeah, Walter had a much better drive in this second heat, and that's what's keeping him on top of the pile.
He's not done yet.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there's another chance of him moving up at least 1 or 2 more sleds.
Nick Cunningham of the USA was only 100th in front of Alexander Kazyanov in Heat 1 in 5th position. Again, this is a tough track to find those extra few hundreds. And Nico Walter, the Yellow Jackets of Germany, with Lamin Dean of Great Britain and his crew, they have a share of the lead here. Cunningham will do well to stay in front.
Dean, give him a lot of credit for crashing twice in practice and being in the leader's box where he is. Hats off to him. Here comes Nick the Cowboy Cunningham, and he's going to need to really fly down here. Speed's going to have 60.3 here, boy. That was a hard steer, 59, not very good speed. He was the first man up in the first heat. At best, ice to work with. And that speed right there, boy, the American's going to really have to improve their start speed. That's the newbies in the sport.
They ripped off a much better start, but it wasn't as quick as their rivals. He's 100th behind. Needs something very special
that
now.
Was wrong.
Oh, and he somehow saves it. Hauls the sled off the corner, but the speed evaporated.
Very, very surprising drive. Now he's going to fall 4 or 5 places. He'll fall behind Holcomb. 7th place, 7th best time of the run. 11th best time of the run, fall 7 places. Boy, this is a lot Nick Cunningham's going to have to think about between now and the Altenburg World Cup.
You know what the Germans and the Brits are now thinking? They're imagining they're both going to get into the medals. There are only 4 sleds to come.
That's over. Next 4 guys are going to be the medalists. Look at this, late, look at him high, look at him dive that curve. He panicked in there, tried to dive out, and that's not the way you want to look at that straightaway. That's so close for that night train to be over. Look at the runner. Look at him just steering so hard to get off the curve. Really, you talk about a rookie mistake. We talk about the rookie team. That was a rookie mistake by an experienced driver.
Hello, Jackson family.
Francesco Friedrich of Germany, 4th after the first heat, 100th out of the medals.
He didn't go early in the heat either. Watch the start speed here, 60.7, 8. Oh, 61.2, but he tapped. He did that in the first run. Still got away with it. Look at the speed. He's beaten Holcomb and Cunningham by over a kilometer, almost 3/4 miles an hour in the first 100 meters. That's a mistake there.
2800's up. It'll be hard to throw this away, but this is ice sliding. Weird things happen.
He crashed last week in Lake Placid in the second run of the 4-man competition. And the day before, he won the 2-man competition.
Slower than the British sled, but still with a big time advantage. Still slower, though.
He's not worried about the British. He's trying to lay down a medal run. This is pretty good for this young, upcoming German superstar right here.
And he's in the medals, 54.10 slide. Francesco Friedrich leads with 3 sleds to come. Will he take a medal? We'll have to wait and see. Lisette Turner down there from the German female crew. And let's have a look at this. Francesco Friedrich trying to keep it neat and tidy.
He had a couple mistakes up top of the track, out of curve 1, out of curve 5. He's going to be dangerous the rest of the season, I think, right here. This is the superstar of Germany coming up in both 2 and 4.
2 and 4-man junior world champion and the 2-man world champion outright in St. Moritz 2 years ago.
There he is on the right.
You can't stop the boy smiling either, can you? Look at him. Well, so Max Arndt of Germany was 100th ahead of his teammate in the first heat. Germany, incidentally, lying 1-2 at the moment with 3 to come. Max Arndt of Germany, 3rd in heat 1 of 2 here in Calgary. German sleds lie 1-2 at the moment. Francesco Friedrich, the leader. Nico Walter and Lamin Dean tied for 2nd. So whatever happens next, Germany will still lead.
These German athletes are so well coached. Now, this won't be a great start time, but this will be up near 61 kilometers an hour
Long,
speed.
slow load from Kevin Corona. Couldn't get in the sled.
Ooh, 61 flat, but that tap. Max Arndt didn't have a very good drive down the track, and he started after the crash. So I'm surprised.
Huge start from the boys, though. 5:13 first heat, 5:7 in the second.
Wow, but that tap neutralized it. 8, he stopped the bleed. He's got to be perfect here. Watch the runner tips, watch the energy. Not bad.
All the way down the wall.
At 9, this is going to be tough to catch Friedrich on the bottom. But if there's anybody can, it's Arndt.
Slower than Friedrich.
No, he's not going to do it. So
1:32.1 for Friedrich. Arndt needs something very special. He's too slow. Friedrich is going to lead. Germany 1-2-3. Friedrich, Arndt, Walter. Come on, Christoph, smile. You're 1-2-3 with only 2 sleds to come.
He doesn't like that, though. He'd rather have Max Arndt. He could be the guy because Max Arndt would be the World Cup leader going into the event, into Christmas.
He doesn't want the World Cup leader. He wants the world champion at the end of the season.
Here's the speed now. Watch this. Smooth, hardly steering, but you said that maybe they got a problem getting in. Look at the speed, but look, he throws it all away with that tap. And at the bottom, this isn't, he was flying, but that little tap there into the finish curve, not, look at that, 9th best speed. Now Holcomb had, that's unbelievable, Holcomb to have that speed with the deficiency he had at the top of the track. Whoa.
Max Arndt still smiling as he is in 2nd place. Francesco Friedrich leads with 2 sleds to go. Well, there is a problem with the start area at the moment. Got to make sure that the timing system works. We've got 2 sleds left to go. Nikita Zakharov of Russia on the line. Waiting to go, Oskars Melbardis. And here is your 1, 2, 3. Germany and Great Britain in the medals at the moment, but still 2 sleds to come in Calgary. A little bit of a technical issue at the top of the track, and just occasionally the cold gets into the timing system. Lots of flags there for the Latvian fans, and they will be hoping to see our first heat leader, Oskars Melbardis, come down and claim victory in the 4-man, as he did yesterday for the first time in the 2-man in World Cup racing. It's going to be a great weekend for Melbardis.
Well, this is, how do you take this? This is a lot of stress on the Zakharov, who, boy, I think he's going to have all he could do to stay ahead of either one of those, all 3 of those German sleds.
And this benefits Melbardis because he's in the changing room staying warm while his closest rival time-wise is out on the ice getting cold. And the muscles get cold, and that power isn't going to be there for Zakharov's team.
Zakharov has never medaled on the World Cup Tour. There's the Germans at the bottom. Friedrich knows how to do it.
Well,
but this, to me, is an advantage to Melbardis.
Yeah.
Every minute that goes by, it's getting colder. The ice gets firmer.
Absolutely right. And also, of course, you know, Melbardis is sitting there waiting, relaxing, chilled out. And he's a very zen guy. Nothing phases him.
I'm hearing from our crew that they're inspecting concrete particles in the track, meaning somebody might have gone through some ice, and there might be one of those deep ruts. Remember, we talked about that crash in the first heat. There were some big ruts in there, and if you find, here they're coming up with a slush bucket. Now they're going to find some rut, and they're going to take and they're going to slush in, and you can see some big gouges. Look at that. There it is right there. There's the culprit right there.
It's where the ice is broken up and
pressure
dropped out. Yeah. And you can see the tram lines there. Those highlight, the white highlights. That's where all the runners go.
I want to go back to 97. We had a World Cup race here. We're this exact same spot. I think this is Omega. The exact same spot. After 4 sleds went down, the ice fell off the wall in that pressure point. They came out and they canceled the race. They came out the next day, they tried it again. The second sled went down, same thing happened, they canceled the race. Over.
Welcome back to Canada Olympic Park in Calgary, Alberta. Martin Haven and John Morgan watching the action. Track hold with 2 sleds to go in the second heat of the 4-man contest, and there is the reason why. They are patching a break in the ice. Yesterday's competition, what a huge day for one young lady. Last weekend in Lake Placid, her first ever World Cup race. Elizabeth Vache beaten only by Olympic champion Lizzie Yarnold. Here yesterday, she set that right. A silver medal to start the season. She went gold for Canada in Canada with a pair of scintillating runs to win only her second ever World Cup start, her first race.
Another Canadian athlete that is moving up the leaderboard. And this guy, Martins Dukars, Latvia. This is the guy we call Superman, and he makes a joke of the competitions many times, winning by over a second. Here, he got close. Multiple World Cup titles. He's probably won 35 races in the last 5 years. There's his father, Dennis.
The second 1-2 of the season for the Latvian brothers. Big day for Latvia as well in the 2-man race for the first time ever. Oscars Melbardis claimed the gold medal. Francesco Friedrichs, the reigning junior world champion, was the race leader. And Melbardis held on to his first round advantage, but he had to be absolutely clinically precise to get back in front of the German.
He's starting to come on as a pilot. He's an awesome physical specimen. And now he's got the eye and hand coordination. Watch out, world.
Race winner in 2-man and 4-man. And there you see, this slush freezes pretty much instantaneously. The concrete that it's being laid on is full of cooling pipes.
That's not instantaneous, though. They might even bring out a little dry ice and spray it on there.
Well, if the track holds together, we will get our final 2 sleds down. If it doesn't, it'll be a single heat race, which Oscars Melbardis will be the winner of. But we're hoping that the track is fixed and we get the drama of the final runs. There are your leaders. Francesco Friedrich, the 2-man world champion, and his crew, ahead of teammate Max Arndt, Germany 1-2. German sleds 1, 2, and 3 at the moment, because Nico Walter tied with Lamindine of Great Britain. With only 2 sleds to go, Lamindine will be hoping, John Morgan, that we get this run in, because the worst he can finish then is 5th position, whereas in the first heat, he was in 6th spot.
Yeah, hats off to him. Again, he crashed twice in practice. There was worries the final day. He had to get 2 trips in and to qualify for this race. And there was a lot of worried faces in the British crew. And the other thing you got to think of is the athletes have crashed twice. Here comes the dry ice.
Here comes the fire extinguisher, to freeze it in.
They still got 5-8 minutes here before they clear a sled. This has got to set up, because if the runner comes down and gets in that groove, they're going to pull it all back off right away. It's just going to fall right off the wall.
Well, you heard Lamindine and his crew saying hello to the Jackson family. That, of course, is GB slider John Jackson, his partner as well there, and their new baby.
Now this, again, this happened in 1997, the exact same spot, 2 straight days. They had to cancel the race after a few sleds had been down. The 3rd day, they finally got only a 2-man race in, and then we went over to the pre-Olympic test in Calgary. So I've seen this happen on this exact same spot on this track.
Well, trying to get the patches fixed. John Jackson and Paula Walker with a brand new baby. And apparently, Poppy watching the bobsled is a good thing for getting her to nod off to sleep. So we're serving some purpose here. We're helping newborns have a little nap.
There's a little bit of a future ski jump athlete, looks like.
That looks more dangerous than bobsledding to me. That's all the potential for disaster right there.
Continuation of heat number 2, 5 minutes.
Well, you certainly can't keep the kids away from fun. And the ski hill still doing good business right alongside us.
What's wrong?
Nikita Zakharov and his crew in the start shed. Back in there, keeping warm. You see Coach Tom Delahunty there with the white hair. Christina Smith, former Canadian slider as well. And the British girls waiting for action.
4 minutes to the continuation of heat number 2, 4 minutes.
Still under track hold conditions here in Calgary, waiting for the patch in the ice to hold to try and get our final 2 sleds away. Stephen Holcomb, you can see behind the British crew, Lamindine on the right, Bruce Tasker as well, starting driving. He may well be a GB2 sled soon. So let's take a look at some of the action. There's your race leaders. Francesco Friedrich, our 2-man world champion from St. Moritz 2 years ago, and his crew. Jans Peer goofing for the camera. John Morgan, we had a lot of crashes last week in Lake Placid as well.
Yeah, Nico Valter, one of the guys that's near a medal. Here he is, first World Cup ever in Lake Placid, curve 3, bang, crash. But the track will allow it to come back up and the team stays in the sled. And boy, but this is not the way you want to look at Lake Placid. Curve 3, but the track in Lake Placid is pretty tricky. That was in the first run. Here's the second heat, first sled down. These awesome athletes from Brazil who are really coming on in this sport. But down at 7, 6, 7, they hit before 6, they go in, they just get laid off 7. You can't make mistakes like that at Lake Placid. They all walked away. And then, again, minute steering down there in that part of the track. And here's the Koreans, the next sled, 10-minute delay. They come down in the exact same spot, 6, 7 transition, bang. It looked like a replay of the Brazilian sled, just different colored sled. And one of the Korean athletes was hurt, all the rest of them walked away, but everybody walked away after a few days, no problem. And now this was his third crash of the day. Now here comes Francisco Friedrich. He won the 2-man event the day before. And then look what happens to him. He tips over a little bit down in the entrance to curve 8. Everybody walked away from that. Lake Placid, New York, last week. This is what that track can do to the best in the world. All 3 German sleds crashed in the week training in Lake Placid. I'd never seen that, Mark.
No, and it's been busy in training here as well, keeping the doctors looking after the crew. See the British girls down there, Misha McNeil in the center, Cody Basque on the left-hand side. Everybody now back up at the start dock, apart from a few crews who have just finished their runs, waiting for this to get underway. So last 2 sleds of the weekend's action, last 2 sleds pre-Christmas. Nikita Zakharov and his crew are ready to go now. Back on the ice, so they've been told the 2-minute warning.
Never has won a World Cup medal. He's finished top 7, 8. In fact, he knocked the United States from having 3 sleds in the 4-man competition last year in the Olympics. He came out of nowhere and finished in the top 10 in Lake Placid. So he's a very formidable driver, but I think he's got too much on his plate here.
A long, long hold always plays with the imagination. There, third from left is our race-leading driver, Francesco Friedrich. On the right, Jan Speer. On the left, Torsten Margis and Martin Grotkop. They lead. It's Germany 1, 2, 3. Friedrich ahead of Arndt, and then Nico Valter tied with Lamindine. And the names further down the order, including Alana Myers-Taylor and Kaylee Humphreys, who raced for the first time ever in a World Cup 4-seater race.
You know, basically, it's getting colder. The ice is getting colder. We've seen better start times from everybody. The ice was soft earlier in the day. Every minute that goes by, this ice gets a little firmer. Comes Team Zakharov. Never won a World Cup medal.
There's another young crew of brakemen. Only 9th fastest start in the first heat. John, they started 5:12. Let's see what this delay does to their getaway.
Should be 5.8, 5.9. Should be 60.5 kilometer speed. .514, not very good. 60.4 speeds, decent.
They've already lost the lead to Francesco Friedrich.
Now I'll say he's got driving skills, but he's not going to be able to overcome this. I'll be very surprised.
Whoa.
He's going to be 2,500 down the next clock. 19, that's not too bad. Now if he gets this down to 13 or so, the next clock, he might have a chance. He bleeds any more time.
1:27.7, quicker than the Germans.
He's going to run out of track here. He might bring it back, but then he's going to fall 2 or 3 places.
Slower than the Germans out of the Kreisel, working too hard.
As expected. He's not going to win a medal today. Great performance anyways.
Gets close, but only down to 3rd place. Pushes Nico Valter and Lamindine out of the top 3. And that may not guarantee him a medal. Zakharov 2nd after heat 1. Now in 3rd place with 1 to go.
Well, that guarantees it's not a German sweep.
Germany might still end up 1-2. They're going to be 2 German medalists on the podium.
Runner tips. Oh boy, you can see some heads bouncing around behind him aerodynamically. Not a bad line, but start time. Everybody's got faster in the start. He got slower. That was the #1 deficit. Bottom part of the track, not bad, but look at that, 6th best speed, and the conditions, harder ice. I'd be interested, look at Pierre. I'd be interested to see how that ice held up in the Omega
Pierre's going to
curve.
say the patch held them back.
Yeah, so maybe the ice in that. Yeah. I'd like to see where he went through that ice.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be pretty frosty, I would think. So Nikita Zaharov thinks again, may end up in the World Cup medals, but that's not his call. It's down to this man, Oskars Melbardis, our gold medalist yesterday in 2-man, and our race leader after the first of 2 heats. There's the man he has to beat, Francesco Friedrich.
If he wins this race, Latvia will win 4 of the 5 gold medals here in Calgary.
Well, Latvians have their own track back at Sigulda, but if they win this one, this will be their home track as well.
5:01.
Blinding start.
61.3, 60.7. Not as good a speed as the Germans, even though they had a better start.
He had a 2800ths advantage in the first heat. He's outstarted Friedrich, so he's got ahead by 3600ths now.
It's his race to lose. The only way he can lose this is to crash.
And that's possible.
Ooh, those aren't good lines there.
Wavy.
And already
Won the 2-man event yesterday. First ever 2-man gold medal.
126.4, slower than the Germans, but he's got a big lead still.
Not speed. Bottom part of the track, he could still find a way to turn it over. 21.
2100s, but he's going to go away to win this one. Francesco Friedrich will take the silver medal, but it's double gold for Oskars Melbardis. Won the 2-man yesterday for the first time ever. He wins 4-man gold as well. Calgary is now owned by the Latvians. They won in the men's skeleton. They won 2-man and 4-man bobsleigh. Fantastic result for Latvia. Wow. Well, it's such a big sport among the Latvians that the traveling Barmy Army comes to every track in numbers. Melbardis breathing heavily after that. Took a long while coming to get this run underway, but he knew what he had to do. He had an advantage in the bank, and he sat on it. His slide, 54.21, 1100 slower than Francesco Friedrich, but it was the first run getaway and the first drive that allowed him to build on that and claim gold here in Calgary, and he can't quite believe it yet.
Good job, boys.
It's a moment to savor for a very quietly spoken man, but he carries a big bobsleigh stick. Fastest start in Heat 1 and Heat 2, fastest drive in Heat 1, and he was the 3rd fastest man down the track in Heat 2, enough to claim double gold in Calgary. Last year's race won by Steve Holcomb from Max Arndt and Alexander Zubkov, tied for the silver medal. This weekend, it's Melbardis who beats Friedrich into silver, and Arndt is in the bronze medal position. So confirmation of the results. 1700ths the margin of victory over Francesco Friedrich, who, don't forget, was only 4th in Heat 1. He takes silver from Max Arndt, who was in bronze medal position. Nikita Zaharov flakes out of the medals ahead of Lamin Dean and Nico Volta. Kay Humphries and Alana Myers-Taylor make history racing in the 4-man. Wow, it's been a momentous weekend for this man. The big one yesterday was the 2-man win. He'd never won a World Cup 2-man race before. He's won in 4-man. He almost looks shell-shocked, doesn't he, to have done both races. And the Latvians living locally in Calgary giving them plenty of cheering. Francesco Friedrich goes to offer his congratulations. This time's coming. These guys are going to be big stars in the next Olympic cycle and beyond. Well, you can see big country equals big skies here in Alberta. The Rocky Mountains just to our west, and the Trans-Canada Highway glittering down there in the valley. Piste Bashers in action. Still lots of snowboarders and skiers out in the shadow of the 88 Winter Olympic Towers. Of course, it wasn't just cool runnings here. Nobody can forget Eddie the Eagle, the British ski jumper who did so much for popularising that sport. Maybe not for the right reasons, some of his rivals might have thought. And they thought that about the Jamaicans, but if you say cool runnings, everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. Well, wherever you're watching, across the continental United States or Canada, North or South America, in Europe, Australasia, or out in the Far East, please join us when we rejoin after Christmas. First track on the post-Christmas agenda is one that they won't want to think about overly when they get to Altenburg, one of the toughest tracks in the business. Big skies over Calgary and Canada on a big day for Latvia as Oskars Melbardis claims victory in the two-man and in the four-man here at Canada Olympic Park. An epic weekend for the young Latvian star. And with victory in the four-man here and a silver medal last weekend, he has a tie for the lead with Max Arndt of Germany. Alexander Kasyanov of Russia and teammate Nikita Zakharov lie third and fourth at the Christmas break, with Stephen Holcomb and Justin Cripps failing to really capitalize of home field advantage. Well, there are the winning quartet. Melbardis still looking really very quiet there, front and right. Well, they receive their flowers, lots of German jackets on the podium. Latvian finally smiling as he chats with the crew. Well, he got the start he needed by a blinding first run to lead Heat 1. In this sport, it's never guaranteed that you're going to win from a first round advantage. Yesterday, Beat Hefty, the first round leader, didn't win the two-man. Oskars Melbardis and Dalmas Dreskins did. But in the four-man, despite a near 15-minute track delay just before he was about to go off, Melbardis didn't lose the focus. The crew were quicker even than their first heat at the start. A couple of little errors coming in on a colder and much more slippery Calgary track than when he first went down it 2 hours ago. But Melbardis did more than enough to claim victory. On this track, 1700s is a big margin to win by. And that was how far he was in front of the competition. Junior world champion in two-man Francesco Friedrich offered his congratulations to our race winners. Let's hear now what the top three thought. Down on the deck is John Morgan, ready to do the interviews.
Okay, our top three athletes, Team Art, not bad, not bad.
It was a crazy race day with the crash in the first run, the delay of the first run. So we have to try our best. The guys have do a great job in the second heat on the start with a 5:07. So have some problems on the track. So we are happy with the third place with the World Cup Tour here in North America. And now we are hopefully go to Christmas and come down for a second.
Hey, you're still tied for the World Cup lead. It's a pretty good spot. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we go over to Team Friedrich and Francisco. A better result in four-man than last week.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit better. Yeah, we had 2 good runs today and a good performance from my guys and second place.
Hey, your start speed was great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Latvia. Pretty good weekend for Team Melbardis, but a great weekend for Latvia.
Yeah, it's a very special week, I think, and second run was a big mistake, but we are happy to finish first in two-man and four-man also. Thanks, guys. You're doing a great job in this week, so we are happy.
What a way to start the season. See you in Altenburg. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to them. Merry Christmas to you too. Thank you for all the crew here on the FIBT TV North American Tour. For Breacher for her words last weekend, for Helen Upton and Melissa Hollingsworth here in the Canada Olympic Park, and for everybody else who has been part of the broadcast crew. On behalf of John Morgan and everybody here, I'm Martin Haven saying thank you for joining us. Enjoy your Hanukkah, your Christmas, your holidays, and join us again in Altenburg in Germany for race weekend number 3 of the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup Tour. Until then, goodbye from Canada.